So there are a lot of different supplies that you could use, and for this one I'm going to use one that a lot of my beginning art students have, which is just a basic school set of watercolors. Now I will say that this is a Prang. The brand for this is Prang, which I recommend this one over like Crayola watercolors and all that, and you can see I use this a lot. It's kind of messy, but the watercolor paints themselves are really nicely pigmented. They're not light fast, which means if you have a set this out in the sunshine for a long period of time, eventually if you have a art supply that has a low light fast, it can bleach out the colors and fade. So I wouldn't put this like hanging on a wall where I'm going to get a lot of sunshine, but if it just stays in my sketchbook, something like this would be just fine. If you don't have watercolors and you want to use just markers or colored pencils or crayons, you can definitely do that. So the first thing I want to do is think of my color theme. What do I want to theme my color scope? I just want to just randomly pick out some colors. When I was a kid coloring in my coloring book, that's what I would often do. I would just I'd look at my box of crayons or my palette of paint and go, oh, I love this color and this color and this color and that color and that color, and I would use all the colors. But if you want something that kind of goes together, you want to add colors that either are contrasting colors or colors in a family group. So like these three colors go really well together. These colors go really well together. These colors go well together. Contrasting colors like this one and this one go really well together. So plan this out. For our dragon, we can also think about what kind of dragon is he and really kind of play with that in our colors. So if he was a water dragon, I would use a lot of blues. Maybe he's an earth dragon, I would use a lot of browns and blacks, maybe a little bit of greens. For this one, I want to make a fire dragon, so I'm going to use a lot of these colors in here. So these are what are called the wells, and then these are the mixing trays that I can mix colors if there's like a certain color that I like that I don't have in my stash. And I'm going to start applying my color. Now, I could teach a lot about watercolors. There's a lot to know. In fact, I've done many videos on how to watercolor. So if you are interested in really getting to know how to use watercolor, I'll put some links to those. Hopefully at the end of this video you can check them out. But one thing to know about watercolors is they like to follow the rules. They go only where water is. So if watercolor paint is wet and there's water, it's going to go there. It's called traveling. And a lot of times people have a hard time with watercolors because they'll start painting something like this and then they'll want to paint like these scales a different color. And so they'll go to do that and then the orange jumps in and plays with the other color and they're like, no, I didn't want you to get together. See, if you don't want your colors to mix, you have to make sure the first color is completely dry before you go and start adding in some other colors. If you don't mind that they play, then you can mix your colors up and you get some really nice effects with that too. But for right now, I want this just to be nice dark orange. And this is what I call layering. So it's just the first pass of watercolors. In fact, I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to show you. So if I was to go in here and start, maybe I wanted to paint this yellow. Let's get some yellow paint in here. I'll show you what I mean. So I have this and I touch that. See, now the orange is starting to mix in with my yellow, and that would be very frustrating, right? So see now how this orange has traveled down here. That's because this area is wet while this paint is still wet. And it's like taking the fences down and letting the cows out. They're just gonna go wherever they can. So if I wanted to keep these yellow and this orange, I have to make sure this orange is completely dry before that. But I wanna go ahead and have all of this be the same color, I don't care. Because I'm gonna go over top of it with another color later. And if you want a darker color or more pigmentation, then you're going to use more paint, less water. But if I want a fainter color, like I want this orange to kind of fade out, then I'm going to use more water to paint, and that makes it a nice light orange color. Again, there's a lot to learn about watercolor, and that's not what this video is about. It's about adding color to our dragon eye. This is what I call my base color. Now because I have just a dragon eye and I don't have a definite ending to this, I'm just going to kind of fade this out. But I'm not going to worry about putting an ending to it, just have it kind of fade out. I can start tapping in some other colors down here to make it a little bit darker. And again, I'm not worried about these scaly things because I want to color those really dark. I'm going to make them kind of black. I want to make this more like a lava dragon, so this is like the lava underneath. So I'm just getting some nice darker oranges in here. And then I want to take my yellow and get some nice good pigmentation. I'm just going to blop in some color here. And with this yellow, I'm going to color in the lid of my dragon. And because everything's wet, the orange is going to come up there and play as well. You can see I can leave a little bit of white in there, and the orange isn't going into that white because it's not wet. If the paper is dry and your paper is laying flat, watercolor will not cross. It's like a barrier. Because purple is a really good shading color, and you want to use just a little bit of it. But I want to add some shading in here. So I'm just going to tap in a little bit of that purple. It'll just help pop that out a little bit. Alright, and now I need to let this dry completely. To tell if your watercolor is dry, you can kind of tilt it in the light, and if you see it shiny, then you know it's definitely wet. And then you can actually just touch it if you need to. So now I'm going to start going in. So there's two other places I want to add some color. So one is these little bumpy ridges here, and then the other is the eye part here. So I'm going to add the eye color in first because I want that to dry fully before I color in the pupil. So I'm going to start off with my yellow. I'm just going to put that yellow all the way in here. Now you'll see that the orange is not going to start seeping in here because it's dry. So it's just the yellow playing in here right now. So I want to make sure this is not super soppy wet, but has a nice shine. You can kind of see that little shine there, because now I'm going to come in with my red. I'm going to mix a little bit of my red and my orange together to get a nice fiery red. A bit of water in there. And I'm going to go along the edges. Add just a rim of color. Have it a little bit wet, and I'm just going to tap that clean wet brush around the edges there. And you'll see it's fading that color up. I'll clean my brush off again. Just like that. Oh, that's so fun. This is one of the reasons I like watercolor so much. So many fun things you could do. I'm going to shade just around where the eye or the pupil is going to be. And then I'm going to let this set. Kind of clean up my edges just a little bit, but I'm going to let this dry before I add anything more to it. So while this is drying, I can work on other parts. I don't have to use the hairdryer because this part is dry and it's not ever going to touch this. So I can paint this upper eye ridge. So for this, I'm going to take my black, and if I use all black, I'm going to lose that detail. So I'm going to put my black over here, and I'm going to pull in another color. I'm going to pull in a little bit of purple. So you can see it kind of turns into this, not super black, it's like now blackish purple. And I'm going to add a little water, because remember when we add water to our watercolor, it dilutes it down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a wash over my eye ridges. Now I want to make sure that I only paint where I want the black to be, because if I paint over on the orange, it's really hard to lift that color out. So go nice and slow. And remember how I said that if you don't put water someplace, then that paint's not going to go there. And you're going to remember that because up here, I'm going to paint a little bit, but I'm going to leave a little sliver of white just for a shine right up there. There's a little bit of shadow there, so I'll add that color down in there. Now, if you're painting and you accidentally cover that up and you're like, oh, I lost my shine, you can go back in with a little bit of white acrylic paint at the end, or even a white gel pen, or some white colored pencils would work, and just add that shine back in there. But if you happen to have your paper and it's still white and you want a little bit of a shine, go ahead and use it while you got it. So you'll see my paintbrush has like a really point to it. That's how you can get that really fine line, is you just kind of dance on the very tip of your paintbrush. Alright, so I have that part down, and I'm going to do the same thing with these kind of scaly things here. And because they're not touching the eye itself or the eye ridge, they're not going to travel. So I can just go ahead and really black those in. I'm going to use the straight black and not the one mixed with purple. So you'll see it gets a much darker, vibrant color. Okay, so at this point, my upper eye ridge is dry. I can see it's not shiny anymore, and my eyeball itself is not shiny anymore. So I can paint again in my eye, and I can paint my eye ridge, and that's not going to cross-contaminate anything. So I'm going to go ahead and just, right now, paint in the pupil in my eye. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I want to add any other little shadows on here to darken in some areas. I might just grab some of that straight black. So I have these little tiny dots here, and for that I'm going to go ahead and make a little mixture of this red, because this red is a little bit cooler. It's more of a pink red than a red. If you add a little bit of orange to that, it warms it up and makes it more of a scarlet red. So I want a nice ruby red looking. So lots of paint, very little water. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just dab those in. Now I want to be really careful that I don't touch any of the black, because the black is still wet. So if I touch this with any of like the black here or the black up there that's wet, that black is going to run in and play with my little rubies, and they will not be as red anymore though. They will turn very dark very quickly. Which, if that happens, you can just, sometimes we have happy accidents, as our friend Bob Ross would say, and we just work with it. But if we can avoid it, that's all the better. And then I'm trying to decide if I want this to be really red or if I want it to be black. So if you're having a problem deciding which one you want to go with, paint it the lighter color, because black can always cover that up. I just want to give this a little bit of a red tone in there. And then I'm just going to very carefully increase my red ridges. Now, I want to see if this is nice and dry, and it is, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of go over top of that again. I'm going to pull in my red over the top here, gives a little bit more of a shadow. Clean my brush really good, dry it off, and then just kind of swipe the outer edges. You can kind of even pull your brush in a little bit and make some kind of more texture lines coming in. That's almost completely dry. You can see there's still a little bit of shiny spots on these little black ridges, and my little rubies haven't quite finished drying, but I'm not going to mess with them. I just want to add a little bit more shading in here. For that one, I think I'm going to pull in some of this blue with a little bit of this black. It's just going to make this nice color there. I wasn't showing you at all mixing that, sorry. I'm even going to take some of this green. Have fun mixing colors, because you get some of the funnest things. The thing with mixing colors is don't mix them in the wells, mix them in these little mixing trays where you don't contaminate your original color. But again, remember, I want to push things back, so I want this eye ridge to be pushed back. I'm going to go into here a little bit. And then one last thing I'm going to do. And so for that, I'm going to add some white highlight, some shine to the eye. It's going to add life to this drawing. And for that, I'm going to use just some white acrylic craft paint. So I'm going to use the what paint's in the lid. I'm just going to tip my brush off. You can use this technique even if you're doing, colored pencils, markers, crayons. You can put paint over top of that. And I'm just going to come right here, and I'm just going to decide where that light is hitting. Now, just a little is all you need. You don't need to put like a bunch. But play around and just see anywhere you think that light would be kind of hitting or shining on things. I'm going to add just a little bit to these guys here, just to kind of give a little bit of definition to them. You can definitely overdo the white, but don't be afraid. I mean, if you put too much in, you've just simply learned how much is too much. So don't ever freak out about making a mistake in your art, because you learn so much from making mistakes that it's kind of almost worth it to ruin a picture just so you can learn that important thing that you need to know about art and level up your art. I could keep adding white highlights to my dragon eyes for a long time. Maybe I haven't learned the lesson of what's too much. I don't know. I have way too much fun with it. Anyway, guys, I want to see your dragon eye creations, or maybe you made a different kind of monster or eyeball of something. Would love to see it. So if you post your artwork on social media, make sure to tag me in your picture so I can see it. You can also send me an email with an attached photo. All that information is in the description box below. But the big thing is just to practice. Whether your eye looks like this or totally different, it's your art journey, and that's wonderful. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more art and tutorial-based videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future videos. This Monday, I will be releasing my Miniature Mondays, where I'm talking about my Alice in Wonderland miniature ride that I am doing. So if you want to check that out, I'm really excited to share that with you. And until our next video, God bless you guys, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.